like a whipped cream mustache.
All right.
Okay, have a good time, everyone.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you, Marissa.
Melonie, you're in charge.
All right. Hello. Good evening. It is Friday, December 18th, Hanukkah. The last night of Hanukkah was last night, and Christmas is 1 week away. And here we are with Love Sweet Arrow for the Boozy Book Broads. Cheers, ladies and gentlemen and everyone else, folks. So we have for you tonight, our special guest is Stacey, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Like I've known you for 2 or 3 years now, and I'm still afraid. Is it Agdern?
Yep, it's Agdern. Exactly. Perfect.
Stacey Agdern. So want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. So before we get started, I want to remind you that if you're joining us tonight for the chat, that you post your questions on the YouTube channel, so we can take a check on those throughout the evening to answer your questions. And before we go any farther, the most important thing, our drink of the evening is a spicy spiked hot cocoa. And we all kind of made our own version of the drink with what we had in the house. And Stacey, can you tell us a little bit about how this drink came to be?
Absolutely. So in the very early stages of talking about miracles and menorahs, Allie, who does the Romance Ever After podcast, was talking about a thing that she was thinking of and saying, you know, if anybody wants a drink for any of their books, let me know. And I, of course, said, yes, please. And so I sent her.
I missed that post because I would have been all over it. That's Allie from Romance Ever After.
Yes. And she, she asked me for the cover. She asked me for the back cover copy. She asked me for things that the characters would drink. And I answered her questions, and that's what she came up with, and it is gorgeous. Unfortunately, there was a hot cocoa incident in my house, which meant I had no hot chocolate to use. We will not.
So you're drinking instead of hot chocolate.
I have got a glass of mulled wine
which is also will warm you up.
Yes.
So I have hot cocoa, and I have because your recipe called for like a spicy kind of hot chocolate, and I've got the Mexicoco, which is so delicious. And I'm sad because all the world markets by me closed, so I had to order it online. I used to love browsing World Market. It was my favorite way to waste time, but I didn't often buy stuff, so I was probably part of the reason why they closed. I just like to walk around and all the cool stuff. So what are you drinking, Angelina? I'll ask Danielle.
I like the quote marks around the hot cocoa incident. Like, I don't have that in compelling of a story. I just did not have a hot cocoa. So I'm essentially drinking bourbon in a mug. Like, as basic as a person can be.
That's very writerly of you. That sounds like a very author thing to do.
I'm going for my Hemingway night. Yeah.
That's right. And what about you, Danielle?
Mine's really involved. I have almond milk with it's like super dark chocolate or cocoa mix. And then instead of coffee liqueur, I have salted caramel Kahlua, which is actually very delicious. And then I also just put like a splash of like whiskey that my husband, had out for Friday night, so it is pretty good. I may have to I have to mix it because this chocolate is so dark. So I apologize for the clinking noises, but it's really good. This is a great.
It adds to the ambiance.
Yeah.
Coffee house ambiance. I miss coffee houses.
Yes.
Me too.
And I love the idea of like anything that's salty and sweet that mixes together. Like, I love the salted caramel very, very much. The fact that you've got the salted caramel and that in your drink is making me a very happy person right now.
Good.
Awesome. So this is our, let's see, is this our 4th Boozy Book Broads episode? I think so. I'm trying to remember because by now you probably know the 3 of us. I'm Melonie Johnson, and I write contemporary romance. And my other broads are, can you please introduce yourselves?
I'm Angelina M. Lopez. I also write contemporary romance.
And I'm Danielle Dresser, and I'm the editorial manager for freshfiction.com.
And we have Stacey. And Stacey, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Hi,
We're going to get into more questions in a minute, the basics.
Hi, my name is Stacey Agdern. I write contemporary romance mostly. All my books feature Jewish characters. I also write, I have also written essays and reviews for multiple years. And I'm a former bookseller. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I didn't know. So when I met you like in full-on author mode. So I did not know about like that you had been a bookseller and a book reviewer and all that other stuff. So that was really cool. So we're gonna have what we like to call our shots, which are our opening icebreakers. And those of you watching, you're welcome to add your answers in the comment section on the video. So first of all, what beverage, and this is alcoholic or non-alcoholic, whatever you floats your boat, most feels like the holidays to you? And this is any winter holiday, just even winter time in general. What is it? What beverage speaks to you the most this time of year? Stacey, you want to go first?
Hi, my name is Stacey Agdern, and I have an eggnog problem. I love eggnog. It's a problem. It wasn't something that I grew up with. The first time I had it, I think I was about 10 and went to a party in the next town over from me. And someone said, "Hey, would you like some of this eggnog?" And I said, "Of course I would," never having had it ever before in my entire life, not knowing exactly what it was. And I had some, and it tasted like vanilla ice cream and a whole bunch of other lovely things. And I was like, "This is amazing." I was hooked for the rest of my life. And they were like, "You mean you've never had this before?" And I said, "No, I have not had this before." And they're like, "How?" And I was like, "I'm Jewish."
Well, you know what's funny is my Jewish grandmother, eggnog is one of her favorites. She loves it, and I think it's disgusting. But that to each their own. Everyone, like, there are things I love that I know are disgusting. But yeah, she loved eggnog. So eggnog is your favorite holiday drink. Danielle, how about you?
So this is weird because it's really, if you get down to the nitty-gritty, this is really like a summer drink. But I make it at holiday parties, like if we have friends over or when we host, like if we have the family meal or whatever, but it's limoncello and Prosecco and mint and frozen raspberries. And you just put it all together and mix it up. And that's it. And it looks Christmassy because of the red and the green. Last year I tried to be fancy and I put like sprigs of fresh rosemary, which was more about the aroma. Like I was trying to be cool, but it made it look even more Christmassy. And it's really strong. And anytime anyone has it, like, you're toasted for the night. So yeah, it's really, and it is a summer drink. I make it in the summer too. But when I think of Christmas, I think of this drink that I make and it really is beautiful. It's really pretty. So
I will have to come over when we can once again visit people's houses.
Exactly.
And have you make me one.
Definitely.
Angelina, how about you?
So at Thanksgiving, I make a cranberry sauce. It's just really simple. You boil it down with the cranberries and sugar and a little bit of nutmeg and all this stuff. And I had just had this idea. I had some out, and I took a spoonful of it and I put it in a martini shaker, and essentially made all the bourbon and all the ingredients of a Manhattan, because Manhattan has orange and cherry that you muddle. So instead of muddling the orange and cherry, I used the cranberry sauce. And then I shook it up really hard with a bunch of ice, and I put it in a glass, and it was the most astonishing thing ever. And so I've been making cranberry sauce after things. I've just continued to make it just so I can make this one martini. And it's been amazing. I actually did it as a blog because I was like, it's so good. So I put it together as a blog and I put it on Pinterest. But yeah, cranberry sauce old fashions are now like redefining.
I need
my
to
holidays.
find that. So you invented your own drink. Like,
I invented my own drink. And in fact, yeah, Stacey, like that idea of like having people, I like make cocktails all the time. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're horrible, but they're still alcoholics. So at the end of the day, all the same goal is met. But I love that idea. That was a great idea that she had about having people write and say like, okay, make a drink for me. I want to do that for people. That sounds like lots of fun.
Yeah. So yeah, my cocktail that I really like to enjoy this time of year, I guess it feels kind of summery too, but I only make it really this time. I love cranberry margarita, so also cranberry sauce.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't use cranberry sauce, but the cranberry juice, and also for decoration, whole cranberries and the frosted rim. I love cranberry margaritas. So, and there's a couple of different recipes, so I keep playing with them, just to experiment. So yes, that's my favorite, and I haven't made any yet this year. So I think maybe I did see a recipe for cranberry mimosa. So maybe Christmas morning, I might have a few of those on Christmas morning. So we're going to talk about our favorite holiday movies later, but I am curious about holiday music, and if anyone has a favorite holiday song or one that they just cannot stand. Like, please, it makes you homicidal to hear it. Because like for my husband, the Paul McCartney "Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time," that makes him, we need to turn it off before someone gets hurt. But Stacey, how about you? Do you have a favorite holiday song or least favorite?
Let's see. I think the best thing that I do love holiday music a lot. I actually have a playlist that I've sent out to newsletter subscribers and stuff. One of my favorite things about this year's set of holiday music is the fact that Leslie Odom Jr. and his wife, Nicolette Robinson, released a duet version of Mao Tsur. It is Rock of Ages. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous, and it has made my year.
Wow.
I love the way that their voices.
We're gonna have to get that link later. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like right now. I'm like search.
It is gorgeous. So that is my.
Yeah, I want to hear. All right, that sounds beautiful. I want to hear that later. I haven't heard it. Danielle.
I think my favorite Christmas song is "All I Want for Christmas Is You" by Mariah Carey. It's like we have to turn it on when we start decorating for Christmas, and we pretty much listen to it on a loop for like pretty much the day after Thanksgiving until Christmas Day. And then I will say my least favorite song is related. So we were driving around I think last week or the weekend before, looking at Christmas lights, and there's a radio station in Illinois up by Chicago that plays Christmas music from the day after
93.9 the lights, yeah,
until like the 25th. Like they play it nonstop. So we just turn it on. We're like, okay, we're listening. We're in the mood. We're looking at lights. It's great. And this Michael Bublé, which is crazy because I usually really like Michael Bublé's music, but he did a version of "All I Want for Christmas Is You," and I think it came out. Do you guys remember? Like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago, he kind of tried to have a contemporary music career where he wasn't like just doing covers of old standards, and it just did not work. Like my husband and I, we were like, what is this? Like we were kind of angry. But then, and then within an hour, he was on singing a different song, and it was really great. So I don't know, but it was too different. It didn't work. In theory, it would work, but it didn't. So sorry to call him out. If he's watching, I apologize.
He totally is.
Totally
he is watching. There's no doubt. What else would we do this evening?
Yeah.
Angelina, how about you?
Favorite is definitely any Christmas song by Otis Redding. Like that, I forget about all of the great like soul hits from like the Christmas songs, and then suddenly Christmas comes around and I'm like, play them all at once. And then there's a really weird, like this band called Okerville, and they did a song that's called like listening to Otis Redding singing. Like this is just great. Like I like all of the weird off hits and like The River by Joni Mitchell and all of that stuff. And it's just so funny because I like forget that the songs exist. And then like Thanksgiving happens and I realize like there's this whole catalog that I love listening to. And then songs I mean, it's pretty much like any Christmas song made after like 1998. Like it doesn't exist in my mind. Like it's so hard for like a new person to have a new Christmas song.
Yep.
So I just listen to the old standard. Like our favorite album is like the Nat King Cole collection of like Christmas songs. So it's just like all of the old stuff. Anything that's new, it blanks out in my mind.
Yeah.
So I wanted a couple of our watchers or listeners who have mentioned some of so Linda, hello Linda, is also a huge eggnog fan, and she says that she loves the Carpenters Christmas album. Oh, my mom loves the Carpenters too, and my mom is named Linda. And Allie Parker said that her favorite holiday drink is peppermint bark hot chocolate. Allie, that sounds delicious. Anything with peppermint in it, I am there. Peppermint and chocolate together. And Cheryl Jackson says that Whitney Houston's "Do You Hear What I Hear" is her favorite holiday song.
That's my mom.
Yes.
My mom.
So I love all the old. I know we could talk about it. I love all the old classics too. But I think some of my favorites are newer. Like I really like a Celtic band named Seven Nations, and they do a cover of the Pretenders' 2,000 Miles, and I love that song. And I also really like anything. Oh, I blanked. It's I think it's Little and Ashley is the name of the duet, and it's Winter Night. It's a really pretty song. So anyway, those are my favorites. And I'm a horrible person, and my least favorite Christmas song is the one about the Christmas shoes for the mom who passed away from trigger warning from cancer. The mom had died, and the boy is going to the store to buy his mom some shoes.
I have never heard the song. Oh my god!
And
awful.
I am a horrible, horrible person because I hate that song. It's like Nicholas Sparks in a Christmas song.
Yeah, I can't.
Oh god! I've never heard that. That sounds horrible.
It's like where it purposely is trying to push all your emotional buttons, and I'm like, do not manipulate me.
There's a song. Nat King Cole has Nat King Cole has a song. It's like the boy that Christmas forgot. And I fast forward every single time because I'm like, oh no, I will definitely cry at that song.
So we're gonna move into the full bottle. I have a question about traditions, but I'll save that for the end for if we have a little extra time. So I want to definitely spend some time talking about Stacey's amazing book. So we're gonna jump right in, and I'm kind of leading the chat this time. We like to trade off, but of course, my fellow broads, anytime you have a question or want Stacey to elaborate on something, you know how this goes. So miracles and menorahs. Woohoo! Can you tell us a little bit about your inspiration for this story, and a little bit about like the writing journey, if you want, as well? Like, so how the story of this book to getting published and this series to getting published?
So it's an interesting story because I had just finished 4 stories as part of this amazingly strongly activist political romance anthology series, the Rogue anthologies, where I processed things that I was actively thinking about in the form of a story 4 different times, 4 extremely current events. I turned into very short 15 to 20K short stories, centered around a quartet of people. And I loved it. It was fantastic. I wrote with fantastically amazing, brilliant writers. And when I was done, my brain wanted to go and hide in a corner. Because usually when I write about things that I have already decided how I'm feeling about, that I have processed my own feelings and I'm able to sort of write about what's going on or what I'm thinking about after I processed my feelings. There's an emotional distance usually between me and what I write about in a lot of cases. Whereas with those stories, I was processing as writing, or like my feelings were still raw and are still raw. I mean, you know, one of the stories is about like the direct consequences of anti-Semitism. One is about how sticking to sports is a really horrible idea that was happening when a whole bunch of different sports journalists were being called out for being political. Like they were events and things that were happening that I was actively reacting to. And so when I finished, my brain literally wanted to go and hide in a corner because it was exhausting. I was like exhausted. I was tired, like hearing the news and then writing about it literally in the course of the story. And I was like, I needed something else. So in 2016, 2017, I started watching a ton of Hallmark Channel Christmas movies. I needed a fuzzy blanket. I needed a fuzzy blanket to cover my brain. I needed something to like, you know, to shift the lens, to alter my perspective. And I watched tons and tons of Hallmark movies, Christmas movies, Hallmark movies, you name it. That's what I watched constantly. And after a while of watching them, I was like, what if these characters were Jewish? What if the holiday celebrated with Hanukkah? And thus Miracles of Menorahs was born.
Yes, that's awesome. And you were ahead of the times. They're finally starting to get, like, realize, oh, maybe there are other. So we'll talk about that some more too later as well. And so let's move into that. Let's move into that discussion of writing Jewish characters, not only in a Hallmark holiday movie, but in romance in general, and seeing more Jewish representation in the romance genre. And what I want to start with, because I have also written a Jewish character in a romance novel, and what's important, and this is with any religion, any culture, it's not a monolith. There's not like one way of being any religion or any culture. And so, yeah, so I was going to say that no background, no upbringing, no one's experience is going to be the same. So what was important about your personal experience, about your understanding of what it means to be Jewish, that you wanted to convey in your stories?
So like, yes, absolutely, Melonie. Like, you know, I like to think of like the Jewish community, generally speaking, as a kaleidoscope. You know, different perspectives, different backgrounds, different situations, different, you know, communities of practice, like you name it, you know, we have basically.
That's a fantastic metaphor, a kaleidoscope. That's really great.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And so when I thought about Miracles and I thought about what I wanted to write about, there are a couple of different things that stood out in my mind. The first of which was, what is it actually like being Jewish in a small town? Because there are so many small town romances, but very few, if any, talk about, like, you know, you see the deacon meandering by, you see the church in the middle of the hall, you see everybody has to be at services on Sunday morning, but what about the Jews? Because that was my experience growing up. And so I wanted to see that portrait. I wanted to write that story. So that was first. Second of all,
I just wanted to ask, so you grew up in a fairly small town?
Yep, I did.
And so was there a strong Jewish population or no?
So in the town that I grew up in, the synagogue was actually in the town that I live in. So it drew from a whole bunch of different smaller towns in the area. So like there weren't many Jews in the town, but they all sort of came to the town, from other parts of the county because of the synagogue.
So there was a more visible presence than you might see in other small towns.
Exactly.
Did many of them walk to services on Sabbath, or because they think that, you know? I mean,
like there are different, like, you know, the temple population as it is actually drawn from two different sort of communities. So like there are the Friday night services and the Saturday morning services, and the Friday night services are in one tradition and the Saturday morning services are in another. So
That's like a whole nother book.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole other story. But like, so yeah, so that's the longer answer. The shorter answer is there are a lot of different people going to services, going to just the religious school, celebrating the holidays, you know, the like the sort of the larger sort of more what's the word am I looking for? Like the more sort of more like more religious holidays had more sort of people coming to services, but like it was part of a larger community, like all the events and things like that. They had a Purim carnival, which I actually drew from, which I will talk about later.
I'm sorry,
like, you know, there was a lot of different sort of things that happened in the community, and so I really wanted to sort of show that and how a synagogue in a small town with a Jewish community that was genuinely inclusive, how that worked together, if that makes sense. Like where,
yeah, definitely.
That was one of the objectives. The other one was that when people talk about small towns, there is this, they see it as a zero-sum game where like you can't go back and forth between the city and the small town. Once you leave the small town, you have to stay away. And like there are a lot of reasons for that in a lot of different cases, but when you talk about the specific reasons in a small town romance why the city is evil and bad and awful, like in a lot of cases, like that isn't always the case. And I kind of wanted to show the integral, the sort of like slightly symbiotic, half like sort of integrated relationship between the city of New York and the small town, you know, of Hollowville. And I wanted to show people going back and forth and like how a larger city like New York, specifically like the borough of Brooklyn, or like, you know, all of the different sort of parts of the city, like they have that sort of small town atmosphere as well, if you live in it, if you see it. And also people go back and forth semi-regularly. I worked in the bookstore that I worked in was in Grand Central, and literally like the people that I grew up with would be like, oh, hi, Stacey. You know, my high school English teacher showed up semi-regularly to see how I was doing. Like, you know, there was this sort of like tie between the city and the small town. And so that was important for me to be able to talk about in the course of the story.
That's a great point. Like again, this is something else, like I hadn't even thought about how it does become a choice. Like you have to, if you have to either embrace your big city life or your small town life. And living in a Chicago, like I live between Milwaukee and Chicago, so I live between two major cities, but I'm in a small town. And so that's true. Like why can't you have both? And that actually rolls into my next question I wanted to talk to you about perfectly, which is Hollowville, which, if I'm correct, it's based on where you live. Yes?
Exactly. It is. It is. It's, you know, I was, again, like when I wanted to put together a point about a town that was genuinely diverse, that like embraced its community, its different communities, and had a symbiotic / integral relationship with Manhattan or Brooklyn or whichever sort of borough you're thinking about, in terms of like the larger city nearby, like where else could I talk about this phenomenon but a town based, you know, where my hometown is, you know, and similar to the town I grew up in.
So as far as the ceremony goes, so in the book there is a Hanukkah Festival, and that the heroine is trying to say, which is, I love that you take a trope that's in so many Hallmark movies and put your spin on it. Like, so, but my question was, I grew up in an area that does have a very large Jewish population, not where I'm living right now, but where I grew up. And I can't remember there being anything like that, even and so I was curious to know, is this something that you've experienced, or did you create this?
So I created it completely.
I love it.
I've been to small family celebrations. You know, my brother had, in the before, my brother used to have a Hanukkah party he used to call Latkapalooza, which showed up randomly during
oh my God,
where he would like make latkes for days. And then there would be a gingerbread house somewhere in the, in the apartment, and like there would be eggnog, and there would be happy celebrations, dreidel games, just conversations would be great fun. Like, and you get an invitation. Yeah, you get a random invitation in March. Okay, so it's time. Like, all right, let's go have latkes in March. We had like Purim Carnival at, in the small synagogue, games and sort of food, the sort of the food court and the games and the costumes and the great fun there. But like, there's like, I've never like seen a Hanukkah festival like that. I've seen Christmas festivals like that. I've seen holiday festivals like that, but nothing like Hallowell's Hanukkah Festival. So what I had to do was I had to figure out why would a town embrace a festival like that? Why, how would it happen? What was the backstory? And like, I thought back to Hurricane Sandy, and I thought back to the hurricane response from the temple and the library, and how both the temple and the library gave shelter and power to residents who needed it during that time as everything was being fixed. There were people coming in, plugging things in at the temple or the library, and it was amazing how the community sort of like found their way to those two particular places. You notice why, that, and of course they show up prominently in the book. And so as a result, my sort of thinking was, well, after it was over, after everybody had their power back, after everything was repaired, there was a sort of a slight excited turnout at Friday night services. But I wondered what would have happened if in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, after all of the repairs had been made, if the temple had just a small little Hanukkah festival on their lawn for everybody to sort of celebrate together. And then what if everybody showed up? And that was how the Hallowell Hanukkah Festival was born.
That's great. I think so many good ideas come with that question, like what if? Mm-hmm. And the fact that your what if is based on your own life experience is just, that's so good. I love it. I actually did some research because I was so fascinated by the idea of having a big Hanukkah festival that I was like looking, I'm like, is there anything like this anywhere in the world? And the cool thing I found is that there are a lot of celebrations this time of year in places I would not have expected. In Chattanooga, Tennessee, there's like a huge car menorah, like a car parade. Like
I totally want to see that. Like I've never, like that sounds amazing. Like I've also.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say like I want to go to the menorah lightings in Brooklyn and in the southern part of Central Park. Like there's actually been discussions recently about who has the biggest menorah, and apparently like it is the one at the south end of Central Park, which is
yeah. So there are some cool events like that, and that's why I was curious after this. Like, well, what is out there? What does exist? Yeah. And then there is speaking of Latke Palooza, there is a Latke festival hosted by the Brooklyn Museum, and I was curious if you've happened to have been to that, or
I was actually supposed to go at one point, but then life intervened. I think it was last year.
I thought you were going to say because of COVID this year.
Yeah, like no, there was no, it was no. I think if we were supposed to go like early November last year, and I think we just kind of like something happened, and we're like, all right, maybe this next year, and of course. So, but we hopefully like, in the after when things are, when everybody is vaccinated, when life is better,
add it to that list of things.
I love how you keep giving it proper names. She keeps giving it proper names in the before, in the after. Like, I love that.
We are currently living in the middle. I don't think.
Yeah, exactly.
So on the topic of latkes and the topic of, we cannot talk about this book without talking about food. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about like what Jewish Hanukkah foods that you chose to include. If you have any, so much is with food and holidays, there's a personal connection. There's, some important reason behind it. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, and we have to first talk about that latte when we get to that too.
So, the latte, so like you think of like one of the things I love about this time of year are the flavors. They are everywhere. Again, hi, my name is Stacey Agdern with the eggnog problem we talked about earlier. And you can go into any coffee shop anywhere and get yourself an eggnog latte or like eggnog cookies or eggnog this or eggnog that. And I love it. It's wonderful. But I always in the back of my mind was like, what would it be like if I could go into a random coffee shop and order I would like the special Hanukkah drink. And so when I was writing this book, I was like, well, of course I'm going to have a special Hanukkah drink in the book because I'm writing in a world where large Hanukkah festivals exist. And as a result, large coffee chains or other coffee chains or, will have their own Hanukkah themed drinks. And so I wrote one. I wrote the Sufganiyot latte and I wrote the Gelt mocha because I figured at least they would have not just one, but more than one. And because of course, you have like every year, like the various coffee places come out with their seasonal menus and 90% of them are associated with the Christmas holiday flavors, which again, I love the Hanukkah, the eggnog problem. And I love the chestnuts and I love the salted caramels and I love all of that stuff. So yes, give me all of it. However, and so when I was writing the book, as I said, I put the Sufganiyot latte and the Gelt latte in there. What I did not expect to happen, and there was like this sort of general idea about, what I thought it would taste like. What I did not expect to happen was that the cafe team at Barnes & Noble in Manhasset put together a recipe.
It's so amazing. I just you brought this into reality. Like you took this concept in your book and now it's real. Like that of a cafe is. So for people who don't know what that is, could you explain what it is? Not the
Okay. So one of the things I was thinking about this book and like what I wrote about in it, and the one thing that Hanukkah related that I explained was the food question. That all Hanukkah food has to be fried because of the sprinkle of the oil. And so hence we have latkes, the fried potatoes that everybody, thinks about all the time. But also there are other Hanukkah foods, bimuelos. I think there are like a kind of like a fried donut, but also the famous Israeli sufganiyot, which are jelly donuts that are fried jelly donuts. Most of them are they have Israel they have tons of different flavors all across in shops in Israel. And I think someone showed me an article and I think there's a whole bunch of them in San Francisco. And I think Bread's Bakery in New York also makes sufganiyot. But the most famous flavor is raspberry. And so the Barnes & Noble cafe team in Manhasset put together a recipe with an almond milk latte, which was the first thing when you were talking about the contents of your hot chocolate earlier, this is exactly what I was thinking of. So it's an almond milk latte with 2 pumps of vanilla and 2 pumps of raspberry.
Yeah.
That is the hack that is the recipe that they came up with for the Sufganiyot latte. And I love it. I was like, this is fantastic.
So I wanted you talked about Purim and those festivals, so as far one of the reasons why there probably isn't a lot of big Hanukkah festivals, even though it'd be fun to see more, is that Hanukkah isn't as big of a holiday as Christmas. Hanukkah to Jews is not like Christmas to Christians. It's not as big in the scheme of things. So if you were going to move on to write other stories about other festivals in maybe a series called Friendships and Festivals, what other Jewish holidays would you like to focus on?
So I actually wrote a story about Sukkot, which is the Jewish Harvest Festival, and an anthology that came out in September called Love All Year. It was a really cute and sweet story. It's a second chance romance about a singer and a songwriter, and them sort of basically reliving their summer camp days and the sort of tied together by the holiday of Sukkot, which is the harvest holiday, which is the one where you see the cornucopia on the bima at services, and where it is important mitzvah, a good deed associated with the holiday, to spend time in a 3-sided sort of slightly open roof hut called a sukkah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because when I was writing that story, I had to make sure that I explained the holiday in the course of it. It's not a holiday that is as familiar as opposed to Hanukkah, where because it is a holiday of identity, because it is a stronger cultural holiday, I didn't have to explain very much about the holiday. I could just sort of have happy people celebrating. Whereas like, it's a different sort of process. So I guess what I'm saying is like, it's a different sort of process. Like,
that's a really good point.
You know, like Laura Brown wrote a great story called Matzo Ball Surprise this year, which is a great Passover story. Passover is Passover, which was in the before a great holiday where like we all gathered in person. Like that was our big sort of family gathering holiday, because that's like the center of it. Like the first 2 days are like basically this at-home service where everybody gathers, and like she wrote this really great story about a fake, like basically bringing this fake date home for Passover, and it's just a great story. But like those are that elements. And then also in Love All Year, Felicia Grossman did a really, really interesting take on the high holidays. You know, like because Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are so like sort of fundamental to our sort of religious calendar, as you all know, like it's a harder holiday to write about. So she wrote about the preparation for it, and it was a really good and interesting and sexy take on how clergy prepare. So it was a really, really, really good story. She, you know, it didn't give her much room to maneuver, but it was a really, really good story. And like I have an idea for a Shavuot story. The central thing about Shavuot that you need to know for purposes of sort of understanding the kind of story that I want to write is it's a holiday where everybody stays up all night for a lot of different reasons. So there could be a lot of shenanigans as well. But for Friendships and Festivals, the next book is a summer holiday, but the next holiday is Hanukkah. I will return to Hanukkah again with a latke competition. But I think, yeah.
Latke competition.
Yeah.
And you actually, I was going to ask you, what are some of your favorite Jewish romance authors or other romance novels featuring Jewish characters? So you just mentioned a few, and we'll need to, Marissa, if you're watching, if you can drop a couple of those in the comments. I know you mentioned Felicia and
Laura Brown.
Laura Brown.
Yep.
Yeah. So, so who else?
Allison Parr, who actually has a young adult coming out in June as well under the name Hannah Reynolds. Allison Parr wrote these amazing books for Karina called about a football team called the New York Leopards. The first one was it was an interfaith, you know, like Jewish heroine, quarterback, hot football Christian hero. And then the third one was like a sort of around the high holidays too. The hero was Jewish football player, like childhood sweethearts. It was amazing. I think the third one's called Indivisible Lines. Rose Lerner has an amazing body of work. I love her stuff. I love her voice. Shira Glassman, Knit 1, Girl 2. That book is so cute. Zan West, may Corey's memory be a blessing. Beautiful, their writing was gorgeous. I love their stuff. Their Troublesome Crush is a great Passover, has a great sort of Passover prep scene. Elliot Cooper, Hearts Alight, and then Penelope Peters, Ben's Bakery and the Hanukkah Miracle. There's so many.
I know that's actually great. I love that that there are, and if you're watching, please, if there's any that you have read that you really enjoyed or authors that you follow that you'd like to recommend, please drop those in the comments as well.
I wrote an article for Elma. I want to say like 2 years ago. My God, a year and a half. Actually, Melonie, your book was coming out around that time, or either had just or was about to, the third. Once Upon
I thought Once Upon a Bad Way. It was because Sadie and Anna are both Jewish, but it was Sadie's book, yeah. And
yes, that was either just about to come out or had just come out, and I included it in that article. And like it's a really good like list of stuff. Zoe Archer's Lady X's Cowboy was like fundamental in a lot of ways, and then Jennifer Grayson's Holidays in Manhattan.
Ooh, that one sounds like perfect for right now.
It is absolutely amazing. Like I love the way she captures celebrating Hanukkah in New York, and it's an interfaith as well, and it's beautiful. It's an absolutely gorgeous book, and one of the really cool things about it was that it came out from Thule the year before Miracles, so like it was foundational in so many different ways. So.
That's great. And that kind of that book you were just talking about, Manhattan.
Holidays in Manhattan.
Thank you. So Holidays in Manhattan, and it being an interfaith romance and all of that. Like, so we're starting to see more holiday movies on, say, Hallmark with Jewish characters sprinkled in. And I think it's often interfaith, or so that, because it's kind of like this. Like, we're gonna transition, but we're gonna slowly mix it in. But if you could, have you seen? Of course you've seen them all. But have you seen any of them? Have there been any favorites that stood out, or any that you would recommend, or say, oh, stay away from that one, it's not good rep?
So there have been 3 of them. My favorite of the 3 is Double Holiday, which stars Chris Palaha and Carly Pope. It was last year's.
I think I was just watching that.
Yep. They are coworkers. They have to plan a holiday party together, and she's like a larger planner than he is, and they end up they're competing for the same job. And I love the chemistry in that movie. I love the story. I love how in that movie they they were able to sort of step off the gas a little bit and not be all like, this is Hanukkah 101. So like they could actually sort of relax and have a little bit more of a holiday sort of as itself. I think one of the things that I love, sort of generally speaking, about the perspective that Hallmark has taken over the last couple of years is coming from the perspective that Hanukkah is a really cool thing. It's this great holiday. It's this wonderful holiday. And that's the lens and perspective that they've been using. And I absolutely think they have been sort of slowly bridging to a film that's just Hanukkah, that's just a solely Hallmark Hanukkah movie. But like, you think about like Holiday Date in itself was an achievement. That was the first movie that happened in 2019. There was a movie that no one talks about, which is awful. It starred Joey Lawrence. You don't want to see it. It's disaster. So like 2019 with the 2 interfaith movies was like the first time since then that they even sort of considered it. And like that for Holiday Date had a lot of baggage. It had to basically explain to the audience what Hanukkah was, because they had to assume that no one knew anything. And without that movie, without that cast, they couldn't have produced a movie like Double Holiday, if that makes sense. So like, and then they move into this past year's movie, which is Love Lights and Hanukkah, which has less Christmas. Like there were fundamental themes that they would have had in the year before's movies, but like they were not there, and it was nice. It was like nice to see in a lot of ways. I think that the sort of the subject matter they chose to work with was probably not the best, but the cast was wonderful with the script that with the material that they were given. You know, Mia Kirshner and Ben Savage were really, really good in their parts. I am looking forward to, and of course, like every time they did the Hanukkah blessings and they had Leslie Odom Jr. and his wife's song in there, I sobbed, and the blessings. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next year. It's
kind of interesting to watch, like you said, like this progression, and like we can slowly make it more about this and less. Yeah. So, but I think I think that they need to pick up Miracles and Menorahs like, immediately. It needs to become a Hallmark movie. It's hello, is anyone listening?
It's my love letter to these movies. Like,
and that's perfect because I want to talk it's Jewish people can and do enjoy Christmassy things. Like I think because Christmas is bigger than Christmas. Christmas stands for so much more than just the Christian aspect of it, and we can you openly embrace your love of things Christmas. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about Christmas movies and ask all the broads which one is your favorite? Like, well, not even your favorite, but what is the one Christmas movie that you have to watch each year? Is there one like that it's not the holidays if I don't see this movie? Stacey? If you need to think, we can come back to you.
Yeah, like, I mean, I have a favorite movie, but like, I don't have to see it. That makes sense? Like,
that counts.
So one of the first movies that I saw, like during that period of watching a lot of them that had the biggest impact on me, was a movie called Miss Christmas.
Like emotional blanket.
Yeah, my fuzzy
Miss
blanket.
Christmas, okay.
Miss Christmas, yes. It's about a woman who is in charge of the tree lighting ceremony in Chicago, and she is stuck because she can't find the tree. The tree that she's supposed to be at.
I know the movie you're talking about, and it cracks me up because like, how is this person's entire job finding a Christmas tree all year?
Exactly. And like,
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think one of the things that stood out to me about it was that it was the first sort of Hallmark movie that was sort of centered on a heroine with a job in the city. And I think that like, and also like, I'm a New Yorker. I grew up with like the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting, and I didn't know very much about the process, the whys, the wherefores behind it, but I found it fascinating. It's like everybody sits and watches this tree lighting every year. And I was like, I wonder how that works. So that was kind of what resonated. And then the small town festival, my heart sort of like, grew 3 sizes, as it were. So it's a favorite of mine.
Danielle, do you have a holiday movie that you have to watch, or it's not the holidays?
Yeah, we have to watch Home Alone in our house. It's just like the quintessential like holiday movie. I think this is the first year. My daughter is 6, so I think she like really is starting to get like the humor in Home Alone more than just like, oh,
yes,
that's me because he fell on his face or whatever. She's like getting the jokes and understanding like the whole concept of it. So this year it was really fun to watch it. But even before we had our daughter, my husband and I, we watched Home Alone like probably on Thanksgiving. Like with that starts the holidays. So.
Angelina?
Definitely Home Alone, the Christmas Story, like the Ralphie and I Can't Put My Arms Down, and that when that movie came out, I was this lower income middle class kid, and so many of the Christmas movies around that time were so treacly and so perfect. And Christmas Story was about the imperfection of Christmas and the imperfection of real family and loving them anyway, and a authentic Christmas and authentic winter, and still loving it anyway. And that was the first Christmas movie I related to. It was all of the things that go wrong when you're pursuing this dream, this fantasy. And so to this day, it's still like, we're all, I think you are too, Stacey. We're all parents, or we're in charge of Christmas to a certain extent, or in charge to a kind of holiday magic, and it's really, really difficult to do that. And so I still like showing that movie because it's like, it sucks. Being in charge of Christmas is really, really hard, and it's really nice showing all of the imperfections of this, perfect holiday. So that's my go-to.
Yeah, I love Home Alone's a staple in our house, and Christmas Story has long been a staple in our house too. There was a time period, I don't know if they still do, but like TBS or one of them just had Christmas Story on like a 24-hour marathon.
Yeah.
So that we knew we could always catch it at some point. It would be on. But I love it when the husband wife, when they have that moment after the chaos of Christmas Day when they're together in front of the tree, like that's yes. Yeah, for me it's Miracle on 34th Street, but the black and white version, like the original Natalie Wood version. I love that. And it's interesting because that was not released as a Christmas movie. Like the history of that movie, it wasn't a Christmas film. But yeah, I have to watch that, or it's not Christmas. And at this point, like I try to make my family watch it with me, but they don't, you know, it's and when he sings to the little girl in Dutch who's lost her parents. So yeah, I love that one. We're running a little bit out of time, so I want to make sure that if you have any questions for Stacey, please drop them below so we can make sure we ask them before we sign off for the evening. And there's a whole new crop of holiday movies out. This Hallmark released some ludicrous number. And I wanted to ask, is there one that has been your favorite, or is there one, and it doesn't have to be Hallmark, it could be, because Netflix has come out with some great ones this year. I know Lifetime does some too. Has there been one that you've really, really enjoyed, or one that you like looking forward to but haven't had a chance to see yet? Stacey?
So there is a movie that came out in the very early stages of the sort of Hallmark like releases this year, and like I watched it twice, one of which was during the night that the election returns were coming in, because I was terrified and wanted something. Yeah. I was like, and it's One Royal Holiday with Aaron Tveit and like Laura Osnes, and like it's like small town Connecticut and like Boston, and like he's like it's just really, really sweet and amazing, and like I definitely needed it to sort of wrap around my brain. I also loved Jingle Bell Bride, which was one of the first movies that Hallmark released as well. It was fantastic. It was made from a Tully book, and then The Christmas House, which I love too. So
nice.
Yeah, I saw Christmas House. I haven't seen the other two you mentioned, so I'll have to try and catch those. Yeah, so Jingle Bell Bride, and then Christmas House. What was the third one you mentioned?
One Royal Holiday.
One Royal Holiday. Okay, yeah. Danielle, how about you?
I haven't really watched any of the brand new ones this year, but I just love how it's on Netflix. It's The Christmas Prince, and then there was like The Christmas Prince or Royal Wedding, and then I think they did The Christmas Prince, the Royal Baby too. And they're
Royal Baby.
They're just not great, but they're also really great. You know,
they are the thing. They do the thing you want them to do.
Yeah,
exactly. It's really corny, and you can tell they don't have a huge budget, because all of the music, it's like Christmassy enough, but it's not quite Jingle Bells. You know, like there's something just a little off. It's like the things like that. That's what makes them enjoyable. So those I watch like all of those, but yeah, I haven't not sat down and like watched the new ones, but it's like crunch time. I got to do it. Winter break starts, so I'll have time to watch TV.
I don't know if I am a procrastinator. Like I am to the extreme. So I will have my marathon of wrapping on Christmas Eve and just watch them all night long.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. I think I'm going to copy you. Yeah.
And then I will revive myself in the morning with a cranberry mimosa.
There you go.
Second wind.
Angelina, how about you?
Yeah, no, I'm with Danielle. I had a massive revision due December 15th. And so I got to relive a book that I've relived a lot in 2020. And so, yeah, there was no watching involved. So, yeah, I'm doing all of I watched The Stand last night. That was pretty exciting. Like, it's not a Christmas movie. Yeah, so I look forward to the future.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have them on in the background a lot while I'm doing other work. Like, and that one of the things about these is that there's so much about them that is built in, that they're the kind of movie you can have on in the background all the time and just kind of pop into it and be like, all right, this is the part where they find this special ornament on the tree, or this is the, so those are you don't need the plot kind of, you can fill in the blanks pretty easily. There is one that I do want to see. And I think the next time is because like Hallmark has like an app where you can check where the movies are at. There's one on Christmas Eve that's like game developers and they're in Chicago.
Yes,
so,
the 12 Days of Christmas.
So my husband actually would like to.
Stacey knows the title.
As well, so we're gonna.
Stacey's like, I know the title.
I did.
Hey,
And I did watch. I did watch Timeless Christmas.
Yes, I love
Timeless
that
Christmas with Zoe Archer.
Zoe,
and that was really well done. Like it was, I really enjoyed it. I love time travel or time slip to begin with, so I was all over it. And and he was not bad to look at. The hero was quite delicious.
Lovely. So. Like he's a really, I like when I saw that he was cast in this movie, I was like, yes, because I could totally see him in the role. So.
Yeah, it was really well done. It was a fun one. That was Timeless Christmas, and then what was it? You knew the name of it. I couldn't catch it though. What did the one that I have like pinned? 12 Dates of Christmas. Yeah. So that's like, I think it's on at like 11 o'clock at night on Christmas Eve. I'm like, oh, that's fine. I'll be up. I'll catch it then. So I definitely want to see it then. I want to check real quick before we round off if we do have any questions from the audience. It doesn't look like it. So we're going to, do our last call here before we say goodnight. And Stacey, what do you have coming out next?
So in June, book 2 in the Friendship and Festival series comes out. It is called History of Us. It is Anna's story. Anna has unfinished business in a town called Rockcliffe Manor, and the unfinished business is just over 6 foot tall and named Jacob.
That's a perfect blurb.
It's one of those like they're childhood friends. They've known each other forever. They have desperately tried to get together multiple times and failed as many times. It is one of those impossible relationships, like where they really should not be together, except they work. It's also about the history we know, writing ourselves back into the narrative, Jewish social justice, and every book I write, I joke that like one of my characters in every book I write or have been writing is a trope that is usually used, and I think it's like the conformist wing, according to Rushaline Maltese's recent like analysis of the subgenre. Like every single, like my first one. In my first book, it was Sarah, the hometown gal, like usually who stars in the story, like the sort of conformist wing. And like in this one, I am joining you, Angelina, and my hero of the second book is a billionaire. He's a Jewish billionaire.
Oh, excellent.
So in that reclamation crew.
Yeah, totally.
His family is old money. And they have history. And I get to talk about how Gilded Age history doesn't often talk about people who are not white or Christian. So
yeah. Awesome.
That's
Yeah, we are here for it. And so what else? And Danielle, anything going on? Any news?
Yeah, I'll talk about a few things at Fresh Fiction. So all of the reviews that are put up on freshfiction.com are done by our amazing reviewers, and all of our reviewers are volunteers. They don't get paid. They get sent books, obviously. So our thank you to them this year is we're on the Fresh Fiction blog. We're doing About 2 every week, but we're doing reviewer spotlights to like help people get to know our reviewers and just, you know, see some of their holiday traditions, their favorite books, their top reads of the year. So that's running on the blog all of this month and into January. So it's been really cute and really fun, and they had a really fun time doing it because for once I was interviewing them and not just authors. So that they felt really special, and it's really fun. And I mean, they're the biggest content creator on Fresh Fiction outside of the blog that I, you know, kind of oversee. So that's really fun. And then I like to remind everyone that Fresh Fiction does have a weekly book club virtual chat right now. It used to be in person in Dallas, but they've turned it on to virtual during the pandemic and everything. And I can't say who's coming up in January and February, but I know who's coming in January and February, and they're really good guests, like a couple that I'm like kind of freaking out about. And the cool thing about the Fresh Fiction Book Club is that it is smaller. We limit how many people come in, so you get to actually interact with the author and ask questions. And really, it's just like hanging out. It's like this, but on a smaller scale. So, but yeah, so it's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's what's coming up. So you can sign up. There's a newsletter, or you can sign up and follow them on Eventbrite, like how most people subscribe to these events as well.
Perfect. And then Angelina, you got anything brewing? Something coming up?
Yeah, well, I did a short story for Harlequin Online Reads, and it is about, there is a bodyguard in My Filthy Rich series. He's a sunny Texas bodyguard, and he has a one-night stand that turns into way much more. It is complete. It was running from November 23rd to now, and it's now all up, 20 chapters on Harlequin Online Reads. It's for free. You can just go Harlequin, harlequin.com and find it there. And there's a lot of great short stories. Naima Simone has one. JC Lee has one. Roan Parrish has amazing short stories from a lot of your favorite writers. So a lot of other authors to read. Great. Everyone's really enjoying kind of short novella, sometimes holiday reads. And this is all of that. They're all steamy and they're all lots of fun. And so mine is called Dream Girl. And then lots more to read as well. So all free and all lots of fun and all sexy.
Free and fun. That's perfect. So before we wrap up, I do want to remind you that if you order Stacey's book from Love Sweet Arrow, there are signed book plates available. So make sure you do that. And they do still have some of their holiday boxes. I mean, I don't think they'll be shipped in time, but that's okay. I think this year, getting a gift anytime over like the next month, it counts.
It counts totally.
So treat yourself. I mean, and they now have gift certificates online, so you can do that in seconds, where you can order a digital gift card to Love Sweet Arrow, and that could be the gift that gives all year. Someone can go shopping whenever they want. And speaking of gift cards, I do have a $10 Love Sweet Arrow gift card I want to give away, and we're going to start doing it where I actually give it away during the chat. So I'm going to pick somebody really quick from the chat, and if you're watching still, great. If not, I'll reach out to you later. But Janelle Kamlick, you are the winner this month. Congratulations. I will reach out to you, or Roseanne and Marissa from the store will reach out to you to get you that gift card. So thank you everyone who was here with us tonight. You know, hanging out with us a week before Christmas, when things can be pretty nutty, even if it is a pandemic and no one's going anywhere or doing anything. And you're going to join us next month. We have a special treat for you where we're going to have the owners of Love Sweet Arrow, mom and daughter team, Roseanne and Marissa, be our special guests. And we're going to talk about our favorite reads, the things that got us through 2020 and what we're looking forward to in 2021. So with that, unless anyone has anything else to say, I want to thank Stacey so much for being here with us this evening. It was such a treat. So much fun to have you. And so raise my mug and wish everyone happy holidays and happy new year. And when we get together again in January, certain things will have been resolved. That's all I have to say. So cheers.
Cheers. Thanks so much, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to say this is the last front-facing event for Miracles, and I started my all of my promo events for Miracles with Love Sweet Arrow on the 23rd with the amazing Joe Buchanan.
Yeah.
And this is the last event. So
Perfect bookending. That's right.
yes, so it is bittersweet and exciting because I've been watching you guys for the last couple months, and having to follow
Thank you
Diana
for
Miller
being
and Jackie Lau made me quake in my boots. So, so this
So
was
happy to